Wake up, wake up. It's good to have you here. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger. It is Monday, July 15th. And Larry, it's the week that rookies report to Santa Clara, which means we're just this closer to football season. Thank God. How you doing, man?
Training camp is around the corner. How about that? We've got football around the corner, and football, obviously the most popular sport in America. And can the 49ers do what has been very, very difficult for anybody to do, and that's lose the Super Bowl and come back the very next year and win it? We shall see. We shall see.
Larry, I'll tell you,
get it going.
Most popular sport in America on Sunday night was the soccer game that was happening down in Miami. Did you see the crowd just straight up bum rush the turnstiles? You had people climbing in vents in like nooks and crannies. I mean, it was a stadium plundering in a way that no major sporting event should ever have that stadium plundered. I mean, it was out of control, and a major soccer game was delayed about 2 hours trying to just get everyone in line, people who were in seats, out of seats, so seats could open up. That thing got so hairy looking. It's amazing that there wasn't more of, I mean, I don't know. It's probably the wrong weekend to just casually toss out the word body count, right? But I'm surprised there isn't more damage and more news coming out of what was a crowd control nightmare in Miami last night, where the Dolphins play. This is Hard Rock Stadium.
Yeah, the soccer fans will get crazy. We saw it during the World Cup when the Uruguay fans were just being, there was a certain time they were letting them into the venue, and they had gathered ahead of time, and they stormed the media room, and because the media room was between their entrance and where they sat in the stadium. And it's people get, they get very, very passionate about their soccer, and it draws up all kinds of thoughts of nationalism and everything, patriotism, and they mix in some alcohol and some hooliganism, and it's can get ugly quick.
They have to seriously, every stadium that is going to be a World Cup host stadium when it comes back to, U.S. soil, has to seriously think about how they're going to go about managing these crowds. You had people who paid thousands of dollars for tickets not even be able to get into the stadium. They just stopped letting people in because they were way over capacity as it was with all the gate crashers. I remember when you and I both went to our first Super Bowl together, the Super Bowl that Jacoby Jones basically won for the Baltimore Ravens, and we will talk about Jacoby's passing here in a little bit. But I remember going into that, into the Superdome for the very first time ever, and the level of security that we had to get through was as impressive as the Super Bowl itself. And that's what I think they're going to need. They're going to have to start filtering this crowd from, the non-ticket havers to the ticket havers before you even get to the parking lot. Like, you can't come into the parking lot without a ticket. I think that's what we're going to be looking at for World Cup going forward.
They're going to have to just be very, very vigilant in their tactics to try to make sure that they have crowd control, because things can get out of hand and get out of hand quickly. And you're right. I mean, you're talking about something that, could go crazy. I mean, we don't typically see the Super Bowl crowd as a challenging crowd, because it seems like it's like people that are just happy to be there, that aren't rooting for either team. I don't know, in the ranking of crowds, it's a very benign type crowd as far as violence.
I'm going to be crass here, Larry. The price point filters out the riffraff, if you know what I mean. Right? It really does.
Well, and just the largeness of the event, and that's also a big part of it. But yeah, but we have never seen that. We've never seen that at an NBA Finals or a World Series or a Super Bowl or anything. No MLS, so it's not soccer related. It's related to the passion,
like the worst stadium crowd,
the singular focus, let's say, and the lack of perspective of these fans. I also think it has something to do with the game, to be completely honest. I mean, think about it. you have no scoring at all in a game, and then you have a third-party official who can allow a penalty kick, which makes it almost impossible not to score. I mean, could you imagine the NFL if all of a sudden it was the typical game was like 6-3, and there was often a call that resulted in, some scoring that gave one team the victory over the other, 8-3 or 8-6, and that was like totally common. Totally common that the officials would award some, easy scoring, first and goal at the 1 situation in every single game. Imagine if every NFL game was a 3-point game, and there was all kinds of pass interference calls in the end zone in NFL games, like 75% more than there are today. Then you'd have a similar issue to soccer where there's not a lot of scoring, and then there's too much referee, let's just say, participation.
No one likes an ump show.
No.
No one, not any game, not any sport, not any continent, not any country likes an ump show. So yeah, that
NBA Finals where nobody could score in the fourth quarter, but suddenly there were dubious calls that sent people to the foul line repeatedly, and
Scott
all of a sudden
just marching dudes to the free throw line.
Yeah, it's a free throw line fest, and yet nobody else can score. I mean, I think then we would get more mad at our officials.
Yeah. So look, it was a very odd weekend here in the United States. We just see a lack of control and decorum, and maybe a theme going forward is we all measure our words, because words matter, as we go forward. And don't crash gates when you don't have tickets. Stop trying to get into sporting events when you don't have tickets. I would highly recommend that be part of the normalization of America these days. But getting back to normal would be nice. It is amazing, though. Our worst, like, in stadium, everything went wrong experience in sports to this day basically remains Dime Beer Night in Cleveland and
Disco Demolition Night on the South Side
at Comiskey. Those are the two, I think, most unruly crowds.
Well, no, the Malice at the Palace. I mean, that was a scene where the line was blurred between the fans and Ron Artest showed his classic bully moment. He had unbelievable self-control when Ben Wallace was after him. But when there was a kid, 8 rows, who had thrown an ice cube, there was no holding back. And suddenly him and Stack Jack had to go kick ass. But when Ben Wallace got in Artest's face, you know what? He's a pacifist.
He backed down real quick.
He really didn't want to get into it. He didn't want to explore it.
I think I'm reserving
Johnny in the 17th row.
Malice at the Palace was its own thing. Like it was its own thing that was players participating, and it's its own thing. When I'm just thinking like, hey, the entire crowd lost its shit. That's Dime Beer Night in Cleveland and the Disco Demolition Night at Old Comiskey. But look, it is really
they don't do that stuff anymore.
No.
They don't do the kinds of promos. Have you noticed that? You never ever see Major League Baseball. The Giants are giving away jerseys tonight. Why? Because they know that it would, ridiculous amounts of people would show up, and then everything would get out of hand. So you don't see these kind of like over the top promotions or giveaways that like you did in the 70s. I think we've all kind of collectively learned our lesson.
Would we get cowboy hats at the ballpark this past weekend? Was that it? Was it a cowboy hat giveaway for the Giants?
You'd have to tell me. I wasn't there.
Yeah, I wasn't there either.
By the way, Camilo Duvall, I had to miss the Twins series. Damn.
Yeah. Camilo Duvall he's having a rough first half, and he almost gave one back. But Yastrzemski gets to win it all. Second time this week the Giants win because another team's throwing a ball to the backstop, but they'll take it.
Wow. Anyway. I mean, that was unbelievable yesterday. It was like, it's a tie game. Oh, there's a ball in the gap. He might go for 3. Oh, it's overthrown. It's in the dugout. Giants win. It was like, what?
Good night, everybody. Good night.
I mean, seriously, as somebody who's coached a lot of youth ball, I'm like, this is remarkably familiar. I'm getting a real deja vu off this inside the park little league home run.
Little Benny Hill theme to go ahead with your slice of Giants baseball. And again, really just to, not that we're talking any or much baseball today, but Larry, the status of baseball has changed so dramatically in my life. Like when I was a little kid, I used to get excited for home run derbies. I used to get excited for all-star games. This isn't just little kid Damon. This is in his 20s, in his 30s, Damon. Baseball has so danced its way off my own what I care about radar. Like I didn't push it off. It actively got up and left the room. That I can't even tell you who's in the home run derby. Is Aaron Judge in the home run derby tonight? I'm guessing no, he's too big for that now. Okay. I know that Shohei isn't due to rehab, but is Schwarber in it? We got Bryce Harper in it.
No, he's hurt.
Oh boy. All
Harper,
right.
No. There's guys that aren't even really home run hitters that are in it.
Right. I mean,
so Pete Alonso is in it. He's trying to join Ken Griffey Jr. as the only 3-time winner. So, and they did change the format again this year, by the way. Alec Baum from the Phillies is in it. Adolis Garcia from the Rangers is in it. He's got kind of a sense of the moment. Gunnar Henderson from the Orioles is in it. Teoscar Hernandez.
Teoscar Hernandez of all.
Teoscar Hernandez from the Dodgers, who's had an amazing first half. I mean, all the talk about the Giants didn't get Shohei. If the Giants had screw Shohei, if the Giants had just beaten the Dodgers to Teoscar Hernandez, they probably would have had a much better first half. Marcell Ozuna of the Braves is in it. Jose Ramirez, who's a great hitter. And then the guy that's in it that is a great player, but I just didn't think of him as a home run hitter, is Bobby Witt. Bobby Witt Jr.
Okay.
Is Bobby Witt. So I don't know.
Not a lot of star power in your home run derby. And, again, changing the format means they'll screw it up somehow. They always do in ways to get it right or get it wrong. It feels like they tailor it to go more wrong. Then the baseball game itself would probably be marred by lousy uniform choices because the players just can't wear their own uniforms like every single fucking fan in the world wants when they watch this game. Baseball just worked
part of it is
out of our hearts.
Let's identify who the players are. I mean, I personally, don't care. It's not that big of a deal. It's not like I'm super mad about this. But these all-star uniforms that are kind of like the ones they had the last couple of years where it's like really muted beige and gray. It's like, guys, are we trying to look drab? Are we trying to look unexciting? What was wrong with the Giants, or the American League in their road uniforms, or Tuesday night, American League in their home uniforms, and the National League in their road uniforms? Is it that difficult to understand? And the other thing is, lots of people, when we were kids, you were watching to see your team's uniform out on the field. Like, it didn't even matter if you were a fan of your particular all-star. Well, like, Dad, get in here. Gary Lavelle is about to get in. It's like, what?
Look, baseball across across every single roster has got an identity problem, a recognition problem, a recognizable factor problem. So when you remove the uniform that people recognize, you're just getting it wrong. And it's amazing how baseball goes out of its way to get it wrong at a moment where, like, should be a celebration and easy. Like, there should
who's identifiable outside of their uniform? That's the question. Who is truly identifiable baseball player that could be standing 50 yards away, not wearing their uniform, and the average Joe baseball fan would recognize him?
I'd say Shohei Ohtani,
Aaron Judge,
Bryce Harper.
Maybe, yeah. Bryce Harper.
I'll tell you
Aaron
what,
Judge,
he's
maybe Mookie, maybe
Skeens. Because Skeens has become, a little bit of
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, I think Skeens looks a little bit like Will Ferrell and Anchorman. Does he not? He's got a little Will Ferrell going there. I don't know, but I mean, Skeens is so young. That's the only reason I'd say. But I mean, let's just take the home run derby guys, because these guys are supposed to be named guys. Pete Alonso, people might recognize.
People will recognize the name, not him.
They might recognize him because he's a big kid. Other tthan that, probably not. Alec Boehm, no.
No
Adolis Garcia, no.
Nope.
Gunnar Henderson, no. They would definitely think he's an international tourist. Teoscar Hernandez, no. Marcelo Zuna, no. Jose Ramirez, no. Bobby Witt Jr., hell no. So there's no way that any of these guys would get recognized.
Right.
So it's, I don't know.
Ken Griffey Jr. would have been recognized anywhere, right?
Right.
Everyone knew who he was, what he looked like. I don't know.
It's also, they've got new rules for the home run derby, and it's like, guys, but even if the home run derby rules are awesome, since we're not going to know the rules until after we experience the contest, it's kind of like, I don't know. I guess it's a maximum of 40 pitches per 3-minute round, not 40 swings. So they're trying to make it more time sensitive.
Well, it's funny that the sport that is embraced like load management and less is more, and pitch counts and everything. They tell these hitters just like, oh yeah, swing away, swing 500 times as hard as you can in 6 minutes. No problems there. That won't affect your year at all. Yeah, it's just there should be 10 pitches every swing. Every time you swing, if that ain't a home run, that's an out. I mean, that's the way it should go. It was perfect, and they've tinkered with it so much to make it imperfect.
Well, so it's unfamiliar. I mean, It used to be very familiar and real obvious. And to me, that's when it's best. There's a new rule that instead of 30 seconds of bonus time, players can hit as many home runs as possible before they reach 3 outs. That should bring some drama, they say. It's a nice homage to what the Derby looked like before 2015. So there you go. I don't know. We'll see. I'll watch it.
You're hitting the hard H in homage.
Homage. Yeah. Either one. Homage.
Potato. So look,
it's an homage.
Invader Raider, Invader Niner, excuse me. I appreciate the honesty. He says, if I'm being honest, I come in here for the chat more than I do the actual show. Again, that should offend me, but I really don't care why you're here. It's great to have you here. Thank you very much. Like, subscribe. That would be very helpful to the show as it grows. We can't wait to tell you what the plans are for the show during football season. It's obviously going to really take off. And look, our coverage of football begins in earnest tomorrow. I mean, it's not like Larry and I are going down to Santa Clara. We are not allowed to report to Santa Clara until veterans are allowed to report. And as veteran members of the media here in the Bay Area, that's appropriate. We're not ready to report with the rookies, but it is rookies reporting on Tuesday.
Yep.
And I also saw earlier in the chat today, like, I dare you guys to do a show without talking about Brandon Aiyuk. Well, we can't yet. We can't do that show yet because it remains a topic.
Oh, we could. I mean, we could always just ignore Aiyuk.
But then the crafty media veteran professionals that we claim to be, we're not serving the community at large. Ricky Pearsall. Here's my theory, Larry. Tell me if you like it or not. Ricky Pearsall has more leverage in the Brandon Aiyuk contract this week than Brandon Aiyuk has had all off season. Brandon Aiyuk can't do anything to get himself more on or apparently off this roster because he hasn't signed or he hasn't traded. But let's just say Ricky Pearsall comes in this week and has the kind of week that has the, throws around compliments like manhole covers, Kyle Shanahan, just talking about how great Ricky Pearsall has looked and how ready to impact this season he is. I mean, that puts a charge in Camp Aiyuk. I think it might put a charge in the 49ers as to what direction they need to be headed in. And I'm telling you, if Ricky Pearsall blows everybody out of the water with just his professionalism, not necessarily on-field performance, but just like this guy is ready, I think that gets scored against Brandon Aiyuk's chances of getting a contract done.
That's interesting. I just think that it's going to be such a small sample size that people will be. I'm sure the Niners will be intrigued, but I think nothing more than that. I mean, there's different levels of how good does he look, right? He looks good. He looks great. He looks like a guy who's going to lead the league in receiving. He looks like Puka Nakua. He looks like somebody who's going to wind up with 100 catches. Something crazy like that. But I think the Niners went with right now over the best long-term fit or the best long-term play, let's say. There were a bunch of receivers on the board, and they chose Ricky Pearsall. And I think the advantage of Pearsall is that he's ready right now. He's ready to step in and free himself up and get open and get separation. And, so he's a little bit more refined. So I think the expectation is he's going to be good right away. I think the other guy that to not forget about is Jacob Cowing. It's funny. I went through and was looking at all the rookies as well, just for a video that I'm working on. And, Jacob Cowing is lethal in the red zone. He had 9 receptions this year in 2023, last year, I should say. Second among all FBS. He had 9 receiving touchdowns, second among all FBS wide receivers. And then if you look closely at Cowing, he played both at Arizona and before that at UTEP. He literally led his team in receiving every year. It seems like he played college football in 2 different locations and 2 different offenses. And then you look at him in the red zone and you're like, wow, this guy, his wide receiver teammate is probably going to be like a top 5 pick or a top 6 pick. Let's see. I forget the kid's name. I'll look it up real quick. But yeah, he's got a teammate from University of Arizona that's going to be very, very highly drafted in this next draft. And it was Cowing, not that guy. Teteroa McMillan, the 6'5", 210-pound wide receiver from Arizona, is projected to go 12th in the next draft.
Well, 6'5"
and he had a big,
huge.
Yeah, and he had a huge year. I mean, he had big numbers this last year. 90 catches, 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns. But if you look at Cowing's put up productive numbers. Every year he was at Arizona. Every year he was at University of Texas at El Paso. So he is a phenomenal receiver and a big-time red zone guy, and he's got 4.38 speed, and he typically separates. So I'm really interested to see both Pearsall and Cowing, because you're right. That's the wild card factor. If all of a sudden Pearsall and Cowing show up and they look just absolutely ready to roll, it doesn't help Brandon Aiyuk's
right.
contract situation with the Niners. That's for sure. I don't know if it hurts it, but it doesn't help.
If we could crawl inside Kyle Shanahan's mind, like we'd know what he really thinks about this. Does he believe that his system is so the star of the show that the cogs in the system are just eminently more replaceable than cogs in other systems? And if he feels that way, that's not good news for Brandon Aiyuk. If he's already got the cog to replace him, or 2 cogs on this team to replace him at a moment where price point is going to matter at the position more than ever before, I mean, that's not good for Brandon Aiyuk either. So I wonder what Kyle really believes about his system being the star of the show. I think he's very much a believer in that. I think,
didn't help Dante Pettis. Didn't help, Jalen Hurd.
Didn't help Trey Lance. Not everyone is right for the system, but if you're right for the system, you can excel in it. And we've seen that over and over. So who's not on the team? One of these 2 guys is definitely not on the team. Week 1, New York Jets. Ronnie Bell, Danny Gray, Chris Conley, Trent Taylor. I mean, we could even take Jacob.
They're probably all not on the team. I mean, My guess is that there will be 6 receivers and that Conley will be the 6th.
Right. Okay.
Because
So
of what
Aiyuk,
he does on
Debo,
special
Jennings,
teams.
Pearsall. Aiyuk, Debo, Jennings, Pearsall. We're gonna factor this with the Aiyuk in the room. So that is 2 positions for 5 guys: Danny Gray, Ronnie Bell, Chris Conley, Jacob Cowing, and Trent Taylor.
No. The 5 receivers are Cowing, Pearsall, JJ, Aiyuk, and Debo. Is that what you said?
No, I'm saying there's a battle for 2. If your 4 are Aiyuk, Debo, Jennings, and Pearsall, they're 100% on the team.
Yeah,
And
I
you're
would say
taking
Cowing
6
is going to be on that
receivers.
team too.
Okay, so now you have 4 guys battling for one spot.
No,
5
yeah,
guys.
exactly. Right. I've got 5. Some teams go with 5 receivers. I'm going with 6, but the 5 that are established are, the 2 rookies and the 3, holdover starters. So, Debo, Aiyuk, and JJ, and then Cowing and Pearsall. So those 5 are on. And then I think the rest of it is a gigantic battle, of 5 or 6 receivers going for one spot. And I think it's probably going to be Chris Conley, but it could be Ronnie Bell. It could be Danny Gray. It could be Tay Martin. I mean, it could be anybody, really. I mean, it's a wide open deal. But I think Conley was such a good special teamer late in the year that if he shows up again playing great coverage units, special team play, he probably gets that special teams.
Well, and now there's the new element of special teams that is the hybrid kickoff rule, and it feels like Trent Taylor was signed to address that almost.
Yep.
Partially, does Trent Taylor have like a preferred reserved roster spot on this team that we don't assume?
No, I don't think so. I think that Trent, I asked him this question so that to Chris, is it Chris Schneider or Brian Schneider, maybe the special teams coach?
Yeah.
And I said, you guys have like every kind of possible return guy. You guys got, guys with big speed, guys with quickness, guys with reliable hands, like a Trent Taylor. I go, what are you looking for? And they're like, he kind of freely admitted, he's like, you know what? It's so new and it's so different that we just want to be covered with all the various type of returning options. And then we'll see when we start practicing it and we start playing, who's really effective in this role. So I think this is not just a 49er question mark. This is a league wide, what's going to be the traits of the returners that do well in the new system. And then what does that do to the roster? Who makes it? Who gets cut based on what traits? Like, is it small, quick guys, or is it guys like Garendo who have like great 40 time, but they also have 220 pounds? Is it shifty guys, stop and start guys, or is it build up speed kind of guys? Because like, if you look at the play, the coverage unit can't start running until the ball is in the hands of the receiver.
Or so the ball lands in the target area. And
right.
Yeah.
So they're not running down the field while a guy is standing there waiting to hold it or catch it. They more times than not are going to be running down the field at a guy who's running up the field at them. So I don't know. I mean, it's changed the geometry of that play to such a degree that I don't know. We have to go watch, I would say, this play unfold 20, 30 times in all these different offenses with all these different return men to see, all right, here's how this play is maximized. You got to get up the field with 5 quick steps, and then you got to get to the outside. Or you got to get up field 5 steps, and you got to have a guy who weighs 220 pounds because then nobody wants to tackle him because he's got 3 steps of quickness. I mean, it's kind of like T.O. was like a nightmare to tackle when in his prime when he had 3 steps. Well, Garendo could be like that. If you're one of those power to speed guys and you've got a lot of heft to you, Debo, for example, Debo is not the most elusive guy, but he's one of the hardest guys to tackle. Why is that? Because once he gets 2 or 3 steps going, you got 220 pounds.
He's so powerful.
He's very powerful.
Yeah, he's more powerful than your tackling ability. That's what makes not right. Yours, not mine, but he runs through dudes, not around them.
Right. So maybe Debo is the ideal return guy, or maybe it is Trent Taylor. Maybe there's so many guys who are not receiving the ball for whatever reason that the guy with really, really, really consistent hands is like this tremendous value play. In that situation, maybe Trent Taylor makes it. So, or maybe it's a combination. Hey, you need to have great hands and great quickness. Well, maybe that's Ronnie Bell. So, this is all to be determined for sure. One thing though you mentioned on Aiyuk, there was a great article written, and there was a guy on Twitter who put out some Aiyuk stats from 2023 that show that his success rate against man-to-man coverage was 78.7%, which put him in the 96th percentile. His success rate running routes against zone coverage, 85.4%, puts him in the 91st percentile. And his success rate of going against press man coverage was 83.6%, which put him in the 97th percentile. In other words, whether you're playing man zone or up on the line trying to reroute him, Brandon Aiyuk is a top 10 percentile, and really more top 5 percentile receiver in this league.
Didn't Pro Football Focus have him graded as the second best wide receiver in football based on all of these numbers and metrics? I mean, I think he had the second best wide receiver Pro Football Focus grade. And is he the second best wide receiver in football? No one's making that argument, but he produces in an unbelievable rate. Again, there's no reason to not have Brandon Aiyuk on this team other than you can't afford him. He's perfect. He's everything that Kyle would ever want in a wide receiver, you would think. So I just hope that in the name of trying to win a Super Bowl, they get it done, and it gets done in the name of us not having to talk about this every single time we do this show between now and the beginning of the season. I want some conclusion on this, because I feel that the 49ers are going to be okay kind of no matter what direction they go in. One direction leaves them better than the other, but I think they're okay no matter what. But what could hurt the Niners is not making this decision quickly, or at a time that works best for them, because it's just, this is lingering. It's lingering and no one likes it. And, every single interview I see with a 49er, whether it be Kittle sitting down with Rich Eisen or whatever, or who's on Dan Patrick today, they don't go 2 questions without getting to Brandon Aiyuk. Like it's just lingering. So
it's a major topic. I mean, it's a major topic, and everybody's going to be asked about it, and there's no way around it. And so I think the question is, and I guess we're going to find out right away, either they've done lots of work on this and they haven't gotten it done just simply because Shanahan's been in Mexico and the players are vacationing and all the heavy lifting's basically been done. And now it's just time to dot the I's and cross the T's, and it will be done, between now and training camp, or now and the first couple days of the opening of training camp. If it gets beyond that, that's when it's time to be concerned. If it gets beyond the beginning of training camp, then it's possible that, they're going to the mattresses and the Niners aren't going to give, and Aiyuk's not going to give, and Aiyuk's going to hold out. And then it's a matter of, if he does hold out, what kind of patience do they show? Are they going to be knee jerk and try to trade him right away? Will they have a cutoff deadline, which they'll try to trade him by? Will they ride this thing all the way out to the end? I mean, then it's going to be very interesting to see how the Niners deal with a potential holdout for a player who, they have in their minds signed up to play on the 5th-year option. Now, the latest on Aiyuk was the other day, and it came from who was it? One of the insiders basically said that, that Aiyuk, there were no new contract talks, but that Aiyuk is coming to the realization that he may have to play this year on the 5th-year option.
Yeah.
So maybe the Niners are, and Mayoko had that as well, and there was also a national report that had that. So maybe Aiyuk, maybe the Niners have told Aiyuk, hey, look, I mean, and it's possible. I don't know the ins and outs about the cap as far as where the Niners are motivated to move or not move, or what they're motivated to do or not do. But from what I've read, that it may come across like, hey, scratch our back this year, play on the 5th-year option. And then next year, when we've got several big fish, who are up. We will take care of you next year. And they could make him that promise. So we'll see. I don't know. Do they get it done this year? Do they get it done next year? Do they get it done next year because it's easier on their cap? I don't know, but I got to think it gets done.
So on Friday, you were on assignment like Dave Fleming, so we didn't do a wake up on Friday. And
right.
I did a show about how it seems like there's a little reality settling in for Brandon Aiyuk in this situation. And I think it was Dan Graziano who wrote the story, maybe nationally, who it was. When I love it when a national writer gets on a talking point that I've been harping on for about a month. The 49ers don't need to do anything here. And that's the thing. They don't need to do anything. The contract, the player is under contract. He is. They don't have to get Brandon Aiyuk a contract. He is under one right now. And I think that is something that Brandon Aiyuk is coming to terms with.
Well, when you say they don't have to do anything, I would disagree, because I think they have to, if they're going to take one of their most vital offensive players and take his entire contract negotiation, which he's said is he's taking personally and is dominating his thoughts. If you're going to make him table it till the end of the year, I think you have to mentally and emotionally prepare him for that. You don't have to negotiate any further with a contract this year, but it's not going to, we're beyond the days of like, hey, take it. This is one of your star players. This is, Shanahan has his players council. Aiyuk is one of the players on that council. I mean,
I get it.
He does. You're going to definitely want to run it by him and kind of talk it through. Like, you might want to make a deal with him. Hey, you know what? We're not going to take care of you this year, but we are going to take care of you next year. Do us a solid here, and we'll do you a solid there. And something has to be communicated, most likely.
This is going to sound doesn't make sense, but I think that there is some truth to how players go out and think about it. That injuries are so ever present, you're better off not thinking about them. It could happen. Anything could happen on any moment in any football play, and that's why players want their guaranteed money and their contracts, and I get it, okay? But if I'm the 49ers and I'm trying to talk Brandon Aiyuk into feeling good about playing on his fifth-year option, to let him down gently in that moment, I guess I would let him know, hey, Brandon, so if you really do believe that you're a $33-35 million a year wide receiver, prove it. Prove it, because here you are. You're in the prime of your career on a fabulous football team that is expected to do big things. All eyes will be on us and you, and the amount of money that you can guarantee for yourself, if not here, certainly somewhere, having a great year this year, it kind of goes to infinity, man. Like, if all you do is go out and play your dick off, you're going to get paid. So just go do that. Like, you don't need to worry about it. It'll all come out in the wash if you have another fabulous year, another, 80 catch, 1,000-yard, 10 touchdown level of a season. You're making huge cheese, dude. Just go out and play. Like, everything you want is in front of you. Oh, by the way, don't get hurt, because that could be the snafu that ends everything. But like, Brandon Aiyuk has the power of being in the prime of his career in a walk year. And I would sell that as upside to him, not downside. So I think that I think Brandon Aiyuk's starting to see this tunnel doesn't end the way he wanted it to. What's the most realistic way this ends? It's with him playing for $14.5 million or getting traded. So I think that's it. I hope he just says, you know what? I'm Mr. Bet on myself. I'm going to bet on myself one more year here, and I'll show the entire NFL I'm worth $30 million. Power of the walk here, Larry. It's the power of the walk here.
Oh, it's going to be very interesting. I mean, there's a number of wide receiver situations around the NFL that are going to be interesting to watch this summer. Cortland Sutton in Denver. What's going on there? Is he going to be there? Is he not going to be there? And there are other spots. I mean, obviously, T. Higgins in Cincinnati. Is he going to be there? Is he not going to be there? There's an awful lot of conjecture coming out of New York that the Jets really want to reunite Devontae Adams, who plays for the Raiders, and Aaron Rodgers, who plays with the Jets. Well, what is that going to mean? You know,
By the way, I still haven't seen Receiver. Just don't have the time to watch anything with the two kids.
I started watching it. It's really
I saw
good, but
Devontae
it's also not good. I mean, I thought the quarterback thing last year was better than the receiver thing this year. I liked the first episode when it was about the Niners, but as soon as it got into Amon-Ra and his dad and Mr. Olympia, it just started to drag on me. To me, the thing started to drag a little bit.
I really don't care about the parent and the connection and all that stuff, but okay, whatever, get it on background. The thing that I did see though is the highlight reel of Davante Adams just being exasperated with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, this guy, are you kidding me? That was pretty illuminating. He doesn't seem nearly as happy in Las Vegas as he would tell you he is in the press conference. That's for sure. When he was mic'd up, he wasn't that happy.
Well, you know, and I threw this out and people got, you know, it got a lot of views, which was good for the money side of it. But a lot of people were like, clickbait. But I just threw out, you know, but we're in the deadest part of the year. There was an article written about how the Raiders, there's all these people in the Jets that really, you know, want Davante. And then Davante is seemingly unhappy with the Raiders. And I was throwing out, hey, what about a three-way trade, which would send Davante Adams from the Raiders to the Jets, Brandon Aiyuk from the Niners to the Raiders, and young players from the Jets and Raiders and picks to the Niners. So the Niners would get, I think, in my phantom deal, like Malachi Corley from the Jets. They might get Michael Mayer from the Raiders, and they might get a couple draft picks as well in the mix. And if you know, and I just threw it out there because to me, I think it's interesting. One, that the Raiders, you know, that the Raiders may trade Davante Adams to the Jets is amazing. And then you look at the Raiders and you're like, well, wait a second. The Raiders, if anything, the Raiders need to trade for a receiver, not trade away a receiver. So the Raiders would be super desperate to get a receiver if they somehow move Davante Adams. Enter Aiyuk, and then, you know, both teams have some good young players. I mean, that the Niners could definitely use, including, you know, Michael Mayer, you know, pretty good young tight end. You know, Malachi Corley, a lot of people feel is kind of a replacement receiver for a guy like Debo. He might fit perfect in the Niners system. And there are other players that could be thrown in or picks to make it equitable. And I guess Kev was saying that, Dad, it got lots of traction, but lots of people ripping you for, you know, throwing out a phantom trade. And you don't see a lot of trades. But if the Raiders really, you know, if the Jets really want Davante and the Raiders are willing to make a move, the Raiders will need a receiver in the worst way. And you know what? If the Niners showed up in camp and they looked at Jacob Cowing and Ricky Pearsall and JJ and Debo and said, you know what? We can do this without Aiyuk. We don't need Aiyuk. Well, then it's like, hey, wait a second. Then it's what can you get for him? What kind of players and picks? You might take Michael Mayer. You know, you might be willing to take, you know, Malachi Corley, Michael Mayer, and a second round pick or a third round pick. It might actually be a good deal for the Niners. So anyway, I threw it out there. Lots of people ripped me. That's fine. That's fine. It was just me, you know, in the deadest part of the year saying, hey, you know what? Trading Aiyuk, which sounds like an awful plan. It's not awful if you get good players coming back. It's only awful if you wind up with a fourth round pick or if you wind up with a third and a fourth in next year's draft and you take yourself out of your Super Bowl window this year. That would not be good. But if you made a good deal is a good deal.
Like and subscribe, even though Larry is putting out shameless clickbait videos. How dare you, sir?
Exactly.
Just a couple of other things about
clickbait. It's freaking clickbait.
A couple of other things before I get into what I think is our most fun topic of the show today. 49er mulligans. I read a good article about that. We'll get in there in a second. Couple of other things, though, before we get there, since we're talking wide receiver. By the way, Invader 49er, can we do? I've been looking at his scary face the whole show. Can you? Thank you very much. That's a scary mask. I don't know where that is. That thing's disturbing. Okay, so should we start with the funny or the not? Let's just get the not fun out of the way.
Okay, whatever you got.
Jordan Addison Talented
Great
wide
receiver, Minnesota, that
Vikings.
former
Yeah.
SC.
Arrested outside of LAX. It's one thing to be pulled over for a DUI. I think it's another thing entirely that you're so drunk you fell asleep behind the wheel of your car.
Well, this is. Are we talking about the same episode, Damon?
Good time for a DUI, and the worst time for a DUI would probably be the week after one of your new, probably haven't even met him yet, rookie teammates was killed in a traffic accident because of a drunk driver. Again, DUIs in the age of Uber are just unacceptable. Unacceptable. And like, screw this guy. You're so drunk you fall asleep behind the wheel of your Rolls Royce, you asshole. I mean, come on, man.
Well, and it's not the first time.
And it's not
the biggest issue here is that this is Jordan Addison's move. And I think he's had more than one. I mean, I read the article last night. I think he had a couple of previous situations that were kind of the same, where he either drank and drove, or drank and drove and fell asleep or passed out or whatever. So, or went way too fast. I think he was going like 140 and a 40 or something like that last year. So he's had some car issues. It's like, this isn't a societal problem. This isn't an NFL problem. It's a societal problem. It's like young people feel like there's no, there's nothing that can, they're immortal. They can do anything.
Invincible.
Yeah. You're invincible. And, getting behind the wheel of a car and driving, I haven't had any money, and now I've got money, and I've just bought a really expensive car, and now I'm going to drive it really fast. Well, that just never ends well. And so it's a maturity thing, and the Vikings are going to have to get with him because he's had a number of problems now with cars and alcohol and the law, and having problems, running afoul of the law. So he's a good receiver.
It's great for half the year. The NFL,
he's going to miss time. Yeah, I mean, get ready for Minnesota. Minnesota better have some depth at wide receiver, because this kid's going to miss a little time.
And, I know that you and I were just looking for it before the show started. I still have not seen a cause of death on Jacoby Jones. He was only 40 years old. But Jacoby Jones, I'm not sure anyone's ever had a better Super Bowl performance, certainly not against the 49ers. He had the mile-high miracle catch, which was a 70-yard touchdown from Flacco with 31 seconds remaining in the AFC divisional playoff game that became their run to a Super Bowl that beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl. I was not sitting next to you in the stadium as he returned the second half kickoff. It's one of the only times in my life, Larry, where I locked eyes with a man who I was peeing next to. Everyone knows the rules when you go to the urinal. You get to your urinal, you take your dick out, you start peeing, and then you stare at the wall as if you're having a staring contest, right? You don't look not to your left, not to your right. You just straight ahead, do your
You don't drop the, hey, that's a great wristwatch you got there.
Hey, do you wear a pinky ring? What is no, you don't.
Is that a Breitling? Or is that a Rolex?
No side eyes. We're not measuring peripheral vision. Straight ahead, you stare a hole into the concrete wall. I like to focus on the flusher, the handle on the flusher. I'll just focus on that, see if I can see fingerprints on it. I study the shit out of it. I'm not pecker checking to the right or to the left. I hear
you're staring at cigarettes in the trough that are buried.
I hear like the touchdown, Baltimore Ravens. And the dude who I'm peeing next to, the two of we looked at each other and said, did we just miss a kickoff return at the Super Bowl because we're in here peeing? He's like, I think we did. I don't even know who it was. And then sure enough, we went out and there it was. Larry, were you even in your seat for that? Did you see it? Or were you getting a hot dog or something?
No, because I did the halftime report and was making my way back to the seat, and this guy takes it the distance. I mean, First of all, he just died, and he's only 40. So anytime anybody dies in their 40s, I mean, it's a tragedy.
Terrible.
So obviously, our first thought is that our thoughts and prayers go out to Jacoby Jones and his family. I guess he died peacefully at his home in New Orleans. His family included his mother, Emily, and his son. And obviously, it's a difficult time for them.
Like, and everyone's talking about, he's a hell of a guy. He's a character. He was funny. He was inclusive. He made people feel good whenever he, wherever he went. Like, all the stories about him are what a great guy he was. What an awesome teammate he was. What, like, the perfect guy to break the huddle he was. And a lot of love for him. But I mean, his 108-yard kickoff return kicked the 49ers' ass in that Super Bowl, and he remains still to this day the only player to have a receiving Super Bowl and a return touchdown in the same game in the Super Bowl. So he's got
it was a blatant blown call. I mean, that's from the 49er perspective, that's why that one, when I think of Jacoby Jones, I think of the worst blown call in the history of the Super Bowl that went uncalled.
Bruce Miller got clipped hard.
Well, it wasn't that he got clipped. It was that he got sandwiched between the two blockers, and Jacoby Jones ran right through his lane, right by him, as he was being held by not one guy, but two guys. And there's so many flags on special teams plays that to see two guys just badly and blatantly holding Bruce Miller as Jacoby Jones ran right through his lane. It's like we see calls that are, bring a return back that were on the other side of the field that had absolutely zero impact on the play. I feel very confident in saying that without those two guys holding Bruce Miller, that for sure would not have been a touchdown.
Well, and the violation took place in the running lane, like you said, where everyone's looking at.
And it wasn't one guy holding one guy; it was two guys holding one guy, which makes it all the more egregious. And it's blatant. I mean, and it wasn't for like a half count or a one count. It was like for like a 3.5 count. It was like they're holding him, they're sandwiching him, they're sandwiching him, they're sandwiching him, and then Jacoby Jones ran by. It was like. So it was bitter. It was absolutely bitter.
It was, but
probably in reality, the screwed up call that cost them the game, really, because that really was probably made the mountain just a little bit too much to overcome.
Yeah, it was not good for the 49ers. It was very good for the Ravens and Jacoby Jones. Our thoughts with his family, his loved ones, people who survive him, and it's terrible. And like you said, he's an incredibly young man. You got an awful lot of your life ahead of you in your 40s, so he's way too young to be gone. It was a rough weekend for.
By the way, he was one of the most electric return men of any era. How about this? He scored 9 kickoff and punt return touchdowns in his 7-year career. He was first team All-Pro in 2012, and he was also a Pro Bowler. But that's incredible. 9 kickoff or punt return touchdowns in 7 years. I mean, those are rare plays for him to have more than one a year. In a 7-year span is an amazing run there.
Well, I mean, it's like, it's Devin Hester level production, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, seriously.
So look, very, very sad news to share there. It was a weekend of sad news, right? I mean, look, we're not going to get political, but what happened in Pennsylvania is horrific. I mean, we decide politics in the voting booth, not with freaking bullets, for goodness sakes. That put the entire nation on edge, and I'm scared to see where this story goes.
Well, we just got to dial back the rhetoric. I mean, just because we don't agree with somebody doesn't mean that we should paint them as the ultimate villain because we're so passionate about our side winning. I mean, it's not, it's not sports. And yet people where everybody's in their own individual echo chamber, so there's no need to have dialogue. And then it's just like, well, we're not having dialogue. We'll say the meanest, worst things about our opponent and make, the youngest people in the voting population, feel like their only impact is to do something that's just the unthinkable.
Well,
And
again, our language that we use to talk to each other, the insulation of social media and our online cultures, people say the most vile, venomous, hot word, code word, dog whistle laden responses to everything.
right.
And look, we all need to calm down. I need to calm down. Larry, you need to calm down. People who don't like us need to calm down. People in this chat need to calm down. Everybody needs to take a breath and a touch more decorum, without a doubt. And look, I understand how ridiculous that sounds coming from sports talk radio hosts, but politics was never supposed to be sports talk radio. It was never supposed to be Red Sox, Yankees, Hatfield, McCoy, Duke, North Carolina, Purdue, Indiana. It was never supposed to be that. It was, we're all working for the same things. We have some different ideas how to get there. And every 4 years we have an election, and it's not about vanquishing the other side and eradicating the other side. The other side will be back 4 years from now with their chance to put their ideas forward again. And it's gotten way too militaristic and nihilistic.
Well,
and
it's no longer a
needs to-
conversation. It's no longer
Exactly.
a conversation. It's like,
Everyone needs
here's
to-
the thing. I don't mind if I come out and put out a trade rumor and you want to say, hey, that's a bad trade for the Jets. Krug, that's a bad trade for the Niners. Krug, that's a bad trade all the way around because of A, B, and C.
Yeah,
Krug,
I can't with it from a football standpoint.
I can't stand it, and I think your football takes are making me sick to my stomach. Whatever you want to say. But when you know it and I know it. We're going to put out a thought that is 100% related to sport. And some people are going to agree with us, and some people are going to disagree with us. But it's that third group that then has to make fun of your look, make fun of your clothes, make fun of your skin, make fun of your smile, make fun of your hair, make fun of your facial hair, or your whatever it is. And all of a sudden they have to go over the top and get personal. It's like, you know what? You don't have to get personal, but there's a percentage of people that do. Now, I don't sit there and look for sympathy. Why? Because if I just shut my mouth, stayed in my house, didn't put my thoughts out in the media center for everybody to evaluate, guess what? Nobody would criticize my thoughts that I share with my wife in the inside of our house. But if you put something on social media, in some ways, in my mind, you're kind of asking for it. I still think you should get A or B and not C. And when you get C, you're a this, you're a that, I hate you. That's when somebody's, it's like, all right, you've missed it. You missed it. It was a sports point, and you could agree with it. You could disagree with it. You could vehemently agree. You could vehemently disagree. But to then go from that to, some personal attack on my kid or some personal attack on me or my wife or something. Now you've gone too far, and now you need to be blocked or muted or whatever. And so that's why people get blocked, because they say things that they would never normally say.
We live in a world where people put up I tried to get blocked by this guy, and then you block them.
Badge of honor.
Celebrate that. Yeah. Oh, I was such a fucking awful person that this person decided they didn't even want to hear me anymore. Isn't that great? No,
or
it's
like
not.
you gave an opinion on sports that was 5 years ago, and now somebody somehow dug it up and throws it in your face because you were wrong 5 years later.
Right. Didn't you say that Farhan was really ahead of the curve? Yeah. In the middle of a 107-win season that no one saw coming, I was praiseworthy of Farhan. Now that we look at it all, and there was only 1 year of success in the whole thing, I've changed my mind. That's how it works. But anyway,
or just like, hey, I don't think Tyler Rogers is a good pitcher in extra innings, and discussing it in a live stream about baseball, maybe with Dan or something like that. And then somebody's like, you don't like Tyler Rogers? No, I really don't like it. I don't trust him late in games. I really don't trust him in extras. And then all of a sudden he goes out and has a nice little 10, 12 outing thing. And it's like, see, you're wrong. And it's like,
You don't know
dude,
baseball.
not only, okay, I could be wrong, I could be right, but you're a dork to go back in my timeline for 2.5 years to try to prove me correct. And you know what? I want to block people like you because I don't want to give my sports opinions to people like you anymore. Just because it's obviously we give opinions. You're going to be right. You're going to be wrong. I mean, if you do this for long enough, we've all acknowledged that. But you're wrong, that person needs to be blocked.
Yeah.
Or muted at the very least, but probably blocked.
So, again, all of this hand-wringing over the state of American discourse, there's a lot to be discussed. This isn't the time, nor place, nor space for it. It's not what we do here on Wake Up. What really stinks, though, is that, we do always salute those who have passed on, like we just did with Jacoby Jones. On Saturday morning, Dr. Ruth Westheimer passed away. And I even tweeted, I'm like, it would be impossible to explain to anyone who grew up online what Dr. Ruth's place in society was for a minute. She would how do you explain that? For some reason, America really glommed onto the 70-year-old woman who was sex positive, and she became as recognizable a celebrity as we had in a topic that you would have never taken that person and attached to that topic, but it worked for her. And then a few hours later, Richard Simmons passes away. And not even 5 minutes later, somebody takes a shot at a man running for the presidency of the United States. And Richard Simmons, it's like it didn't even happen. And then I found out what Shannon Doherty of Beverly Hills 90210. It was a rough weekend, man. It was a rough weekend on nostalgia. It was a rough weekend on Americana. It was a rough weekend for the stadium crew down in Miami. I mean, everyone needs to calm down, take a breath, be a little nicer to each other. And that includes, Larry, Jerry Rice. Dude, Jerry Rice blew his stack on some reporter up at the,
it wasn't a reporter. It was just a rando. It was just a guy.
Two guys who worked for a Kansas City radio station or media outlet, and
they were just in the gallery. He didn't know that they were media people. He just thought they were people at a golf tournament.
Oh, I thought they were standing between the ropes, like right behind his tee box. That's where he walked back to confront them. Anyway, so Jerry Rice.
All they said was that, hey, do the Chiefs have good enough receivers to win the Super Bowl? But they were trying to troll Jerry, and he knew it.
Maybe.
I mean, it's like if you go up to anybody.
I know what trolling and assholery looks like. It really wasn't that. Like Jerry, I think Jerry miscalculated this a little bit, but he wants to make sure that those 49ers checks still clear. I mean, Jerry is on team.
He's a Niner. I'm glad. And that was great. I mean, he's going to defend. That was a smart ass. Come on. The Chiefs just beat the Niners in the Super Bowl. Do the Chiefs have good enough receivers to win the Super Bowl? It's at the very least, it's a gotcha question. And he wasn't having any of it. And he pushed back hard on those guys. I loved it. I thought it was great. Like, you know what? Tell him, Jerry. And the fact of the matter is, I'm as a Niner fan, it makes me happy that Jerry still thinks of himself as a Niner.
Oh, of course he does. Of course he does. I mean, but I was like, Jerry Rice is officially like one of the harder to ruffle, nicer guys out there. So for him, it was just so out of character for him to just come and try to like step to someone and physically threaten them in public. Like, it was weird. Very, very weird. Just shows you even Jerry Rice is on edge, where they're like, everyone needs to just calm down, smoke a joint, laugh a little, be nicer to each other. And on that note, are you ready for the best question I got? I'll show for you here, Larry. I don't know if you read the article or not. It was written by Patrick Holloway on NinersNation.com. And it was basically the perfect slow time of the year off-season question. Somebody did a what would every franchise in the NFL, what would their mulligan be? If you could give this franchise a mulligan, they can go back in time and reverse any one decision. What would it be? for
I
the
know what
49ers.
I know what it would be for me, but what do they have?
So no. I mean, there's many different things. There's a ton of different things it could be for the 49ers. And the 49ers have had a staggering amount of success in their franchise history. So I can't even imagine how
Is
many
it a play call? Does it always have to be a play call, or could it just be something that happened in a game?
It can be anything. I mean, this is, it could be Shanahan's decision on the coin toss. It could be the Kyle Williams muffed punt. It could be Harbaugh asking Kaepernick to throw fades to Crabtree at the end of a Super Bowl instead of turning around and handing the ball to Frank Gore. It could be the Roger Craig fumble. It could be Jed York's decision to fire Jim Harbaugh. There are a lot of little things. What do you think, Larry, is the biggest mulligan? You can go back in time. You have a time machine. You can change history. What would it be?
Well, if you had asked me this a year ago, I would have said for sure it was the Super Bowl 47 Niners-Ravens 1st and goal with 2:20 left from like the 7-yard line. And everything that emanated from there was a train wreck. You didn't hand the ball to Frank Gore. You didn't run Kaepernick. You didn't throw the ball to Randy Moss. You didn't, instead it was Michael James got a carry. It was unbelievable.
He gets no touches all year. You're giving him a vital touch at the end of a Super Bowl.
Because Frank Gore was tired running down the field. I mean, my God. I mean, it's Frank Gore. The guy, his entire career, he tore both ACLs before he played it down. I mean, he needed that Super Bowl carry, and you gave it to Michael James. So to me, that was until this year. But now I'd have to say it's Spencer Burford combo blocking on Brendel's guy inside and leaving Chris Jones a free run at Brock Purdy. If he just stays in the hole and blocks Chris Jones, and even if Chris Jones destroyed him and ran right through him, if he just slowed him down for a tick, Brock Purdy finds Brandon Aiyuk on the backside. It's a touchdown, and the 49ers don't win the Super Bowl, but they take a touchdown lead in the Super Bowl, and then Mahomes' touchdown on the other end would have been just the tying touchdown, though they probably would have gone for 2. And things maybe would have gone differently. But to me, I would say it's the missed block on Chris Jones by Burford. But really, what's really in my heart is Harbaugh's butchering of 1st and goal from the 7.
Okay. Removing yourself from a specific play, but thinking a little bit more macro than micro. Does anything come to mind to you? Is that's a mulligan moment? Because to me,
the Roger Craig fumble, in the 90s title game. I mean, you were going to go for 3 in a row there, but you didn't have Joe Montana. So I don't think I personally, and Steve Young and I are friends, so I try not to harp on this, but I'm not convinced that Steve Young at that point in history would have beaten that Buffalo Bills team the way that the New York Giants did. I think it was in Tampa for that Super Bowl. So I'm not as convinced that the Roger Craig fumble really did mean the difference between winning 3 in a row and not. I know that's where the dream ended, but it was still going to be Steve Young, who had never played in the playoffs at that point, who in his first playoff game years later had like 5 turnovers against the Redskins, and in a playoff game the Niners won. Would they have had enough to beat that Buffalo team that didn't have any mental baggage at that point? Because that was the first loss.
Right. So you're thinking a little bit bigger and broader now. I like that, because to me, the answer to this question has to have a significant butterfly ripple effect, right? It's a mulligan for the Niners, but it also changes things in NFL history. And a lot of people, I think, will say, well, probably should have taken Aaron Rodgers instead of Alex Smith. Like, that popped into my mind. But the truth is, even though Alex Smith never really got the job done for the 49ers, Aaron Rodgers specifically never really haunted the 49ers, because the 49ers have gotten to the postseason and kicked Aaron Rodgers' ass just about every single time they met him there. So that's really not it. I got it. I have it. The single biggest, like you go back in time, you take this out of the timeline, you put this into the timeline. Not only does it change what the 49ers are forever, it changes NFL history forever. Taking Solomon Thomas 7 picks ahead of Patrick Mahomes. If you could redo anything, you take Patrick Mahomes. You're not then running into Patrick Mahomes twice and losing to him twice in a Super Bowl, with him beating you twice late in Super Bowls. He's yours. You've won Super Bowls with this guy. That to me is the biggest. Not only do you change Niner history, you change NFL history with that one decision alone. Not Solomon Thomas. You draft Patrick Mahomes. Oh my God. Imagine the world we're living in if that.
I'll go one better than that. To me, now I interviewed him on the practice field at the East-West Shrine game the year he came out. And I thought, man, this guy would be nice to the Niners had this guy. And it was Tom Brady. You know, I interviewed Tom Brady on the practice field at the East-West Shrine practices. I was doing the sideline reporting for that game that week. The game was on KMBR. And Tom Brady. I mean, the Niners were looking for a quarterback, and Joe Montana was being, literally Tom Brady's first start could have been in a 49er uniform against the Patriots in the Hall of Fame game the weekend that Joe Montana went to the Hall of Fame. There would have been nothing more perfect than the kid from San Mateo who went to Sarah, grew up, loving Joe Montana, watching Joe Montana. He was at the Catch game. You needed a quarterback. And if you had drafted Tom Brady, you would have said goodbye to Joe Montana as far as he's going to the Hall of Fame. The next year you were saying goodbye to Steve Young because he was retiring, and you could have just handed the reins to Tom Brady. And, the rest would have been history. So needing a quarterback, drafting 2 in the draft that had Tom Brady, and missing on Rattay and Carmazzi for Tom Brady. And that was everybody. So like Walsh was involved in that decision. Donahue was involved in that decision. The late Greg Knapp was involved in this decision. Steve Mariucci, they all got it wrong. And they were all looking for the wrong thing. They were looking for the next Steve Young. And if they didn't see that kind of mobility, they moved off of the prospect. They didn't see it in Brady because he didn't have it. They moved off of him, and he went in their backyard. I mean, he left their backyard and beat them in his first game. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, the way that thing came together was amazing.
The entire league missed out on Brady, obviously. Brady was so under the radar. And had basically, here's the best way to sum up Tom Brady's career.
Timing would have been perfect, though.
The best way to sum up Tom Brady's career at Michigan. Not much. No one could use that to describe what Patrick Mahomes' career was.
In a way, the more interesting part about the Brady thing is if you watch the Montana documentary, it was pretty damn clear that Tom Brady had the almost exact same career in college that Joe Montana had. They both were kind of physically underwhelming. They both got caught up in a deep school of football powerhouse with tons of really good other quarterback prospects around them. Both got buried. Both came off the bench and won big, big games for their team, only to still have their coach not believe and bench them again. I mean, Tom Brady, came off the bench and won games and then was sitting the next week. Joe Montana came off the bench, won big games, and was sitting the next weekend.
Right.
It's pretty amazing, really. In a lot of ways, the similarities are huge.
Joe Montana won a national championship.
Tom Brady beat Alabama in the Citrus Bowl, coming from behind by 2 touchdowns twice to do it in his final game. I mean, Tom Brady also did it in the big house in front of 100,000 plus people. So, I mean, there's a lot of similarities there. If you really think about it. Notre Dame, Michigan, neither guy was like the guy there. Both of them were not day one or day two picks.
Right. Tom Brady's looking over his shoulder for Drew Henson, for goodness sakes, right?
Right. And Brian Greasy. And Joe Montana.
Was Greasy before Brady or after Brady?
Before.
Yeah.
But he was still there. He competed. Brian Greasy was the starter, I think, when Brady was a rookie, a freshman or a sophomore. But I mean, they had Drew Henson, they had Brady, they had other guys, and it's like college football today to some degree. I mean, there's great depth at the powerhouse programs. There was great depth at Notre Dame. There was great depth at Michigan. Both guys got passed over. Both of them were kind of like, "Are you kidding me?" People looked at him. Dwight Clark thought Joe Montana was a kicker the first time he met him. Tom Brady, looked probably a better athlete today than he was coming out of Michigan. So yeah, I mean, they missed. I mean, if you really think about it, it's pretty amazing. The greatest quarterbacks of all time. Tom Brady went in the 6th round and Joe Montana went in the 3rd round. I mean, these are the two best quarterbacks that ever played.
Hey,
neither of them in the first 2 rounds.
The 3rd best quarterback of all time was the last pick in the draft. I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, one of the best young quarterbacks in the game today. There's no doubt.
Well, look at it this way.
No doubt in my mind.
If we're factoring in, I guess you'd really have to think an awful lot of Jared Goff or really think that Stafford has a ton left still in Los Angeles. Is Brock Purdy the best quarterback in the NFC? Like, all the great quarterbacks are in the AFC right now. It really is.
I mean, I saw a list the other day that Stafford 1, Goff 2, Prescott 3, and Purdy 4, with Jordan Love 5. I think Purdy should be 2 at least to Stafford. I mean, I will say this, and I just saw this. I only have the stat because I was doing a video on this yesterday. Purdy, since he came off the bench.
Another clickbait video, Larry? Was it a clickbait video?
Yeah, it was another clickbait video. Purdy, since coming off the bench against the Dolphins in 2022, since that point, Brock Purdy ranks among all NFL quarterbacks in passer rating first, in yards per attempt first, in total touchdown passes second, and in total passing yards fourth. That's where, and he's 17-4 in the regular season and 4-2 in the playoffs, with 2 of those losses being the game where he played 6 plays and the other, the overtime loss to Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
Well, and that's
pretty freaking good, man.
And
pretty freaking good.
If that's not good enough for you, let me use this as the sliding scale. Without looking at it, without seeing the numbers, he's done everything that you said he's done in what? 250 to 350 fewer attempts than everybody else that we're also talking about that surrounds him in that conversation. I mean, there is no quarterback out there having more success throwing the ball less than Brock Purdy. I mean,
undefeated in the NFC West. M. Patel says Purdy against Stafford, Goff, Dak, and Love is 5-0.
Again, is he the best quarterback in the NFC? If you want to say absolutely not, you have to admit he's in the conversation. I don't think you can have this conversation without him. So, he's not far away from being the correct answer if he's in the group of acceptable answers. So,
let's just say this. I mean, there's lots of different ways to evaluate better, right? I would say if there were a draft today of all the NFC quarterbacks, Purdy either goes 1 or Purdy goes 2 and Jordan Love goes 1.
Right.
So I think he is right now. I'd probably have him as the best quarterback in the NFC. I also think that there's a very good chance that this year he goes to another new level, and plays even better than he's played. Because that makes sense.
Talk about the amount of money that's on the table for you with a good, productive year. Brandon Aiyuk has a lot of money on the table for him. Brock Purdy can make $60 million. He can be a $60 million. If Brock Purdy is in the top 3 MVP vote finalists this year and the Niners are back in the postseason, he's making 60, Larry. Just going. Start that number with a 6.
There's many more reasons that you could point to of why Brock would be better this year than last year. Then there are reasons that you could point to that he'd regress. He's got better running backs. He's got better receivers. I think he's got a deeper offensive line. He's got better knowledge of the system. He was healthy. He had reps all off season with Pearsall and Cowing and any other receiver that showed up at the facility. He didn't have a off season last year. The year before, he was a rookie. So, I mean, I think you could make a really compelling argument that Brock Purdy is going to be better this year than he's been thus far. And he is 17-4 in the regular season. So, it's pretty incredible stuff if you really think about it. I mean, the fact of the matter is this guy could be better than he's been. He's already been really, really good.
It's a good situation that the 49ers have. It really is. I'm excited for this year. It can't get here fast enough. We're under 60 days here, Larry. We're like 55 days away from week 1 against the New York Jets. These last couple months are going to go by quickly, and we can't wait because we're officially ready here for some football. I'm ready. Are you excited about college football 25? You're not a big video game guy at all, are you?
No, not. I mean, I don't play. I mean, I will like sometimes between Christmas and New Year's, especially if the kids get like a new video game, I'll sit down with them and play. But no, I don't. I'm 54. If I'm playing too many video games right now, that's probably not a good thing.
Right. Well, I'm 49, and I basically told my wife she's going to be on kid duty on the day that College Football 25 comes out because I am going to smoke a half a pound of weed and play a video game for a solid 24 hours. I cannot wait for this game.
Well, you saw Kate Scott's in the new Madden.
I did see that. Good for her, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. Good for Kate. I want all good things for Kate Scott. But yeah, look, I've been through that process. I wasn't the play-by-play guy, but I was the halftime show like 4 or 5 years in a row there for the NBA 2K series. So I sort of know what that recording process is like. I guarantee you that Kate spent 500 hours recording for Madden. I bet you she made a nice chunk of change off that. I bet that's a 6-figure payday for Kate Scott just doing that video game alone.
Wow.
Yeah. Look at it this way. My payday just doing the halftime show, which my total recording time was under 200 hours. And and out of that I made about 80,000.
Wow. Yeah, well, I mean, the video game, the impact on the cultural impact is really where the value is there. But yeah, absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
good for her.
Well, so you know what this is going to do? This will put Kate Scott in an NFL booth one day. She's gonna do NFL play-by-play one day. You watch.
She already has.
No. I mean, like for real. Regular season.
She did the Seahawks preseason schedule last year.
Seahawks preseason. You're filling in for Ted Robinson. I'm talking about like she's leaving the Philadelphia 76ers to become the next voice of the Miami Dolphins. Like that's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Absolutely. Maybe the Philadelphia Eagles. Probably not. Maybe.
Well, look at it this way. She's clearly got some sort of in Seattle if they're already bringing her in for preseason games, right?
Yeah.
Maybe she comes back to the Bay, Larry. She's a girl from Clovis. She can look. Everyone's got to eat where they live. And, Kate Scott will be like, go Birds. And she'll tweet that bullshit. She's a Niner fan through and through. She wants the Niners to fucking mollywop the Eagles every time they play. So there you go.
The voice of the Niners. Hey, one other note that I saw this weekend I thought was interesting. Last year's NFL draft was in Detroit, right? And Detroit broke the league's all-time record for attendance at the draft. There were 775,000 people.
And Detroit looked great. I mean, you don't see a lot of Detroit blimp money shots where you're like, God, that's a beautiful city. It looked great. It played great on TV. I was very happy for Detroit.
Well, today it came out the economic gains, and then these are always hard to really accurately analyze. But if you visit Detroit and the Detroit Sports Commission, they revealed this week that the hosting the draft, which this year will be in Green Bay, generated more than $213 million for the region of Detroit, Michigan.
Again, it's not exactly a tourist town. It's not a vacation destination. So whenever Detroit gets a massive influx of people who normally would not be coming for any other reason, I mean, you definitely like look at it this way. Back in the day, there used to be a lot of shit going on in downtown San Francisco. So with the Super Bowl being in San Francisco, it was like that was just more of a busy downtown, where there was not a busy downtown in Detroit before the draft came to Detroit. So
there's a lot of empty corners, according to some.
Right. And a lot of vacancy in hotel rooms became unvacant hotel. That was great for Detroit. It really was. And I'll tell you what, they're going to wait until you see the nothing else is going on in Wisconsin amount of people show up to Green Bay.
Oh, it's going to be huge.
Now, are they doing that at Lambeau? Like in
probably. I mean, where else would they do it? The Piggly Wiggly or Kroger's or something? I mean, Green Bay, Wisconsin is a very, very small place. I don't think it has any venue that even approaches Lambeau. So if they're going to get hundreds of thousands of people, I would imagine it's going to be right there on the field at Lambeau.
I would think. I mean, who wants to go?
Otherwise, how are you going to? Where are you going to find all the seats?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. I mean, it's either that. I mean, there's plenty of land. So if they wanted to, build a.
Oh, they got space for days. Sure.
Yeah, they could put up a pop tent and throw all kinds of chairs. But what the heck? They got a stadium there. My guess is they'll do it inside the stadium.
Yeah, I think they'll build their stage inside the stadium and then have spillover crowd.
In the stands
at Lambeau.
Right. So that's what makes the most sense.
I wonder if the Bay Area will ever get an NFL draft.
Never.
Probably.
There's no passion for it. We wouldn't even come close to selling it out. I mean, man, there'd be no. It would have to be in Santa Clara. But I'll say this: the weather on draft day in Santa Clara could be absolutely the most perfect there is. April in Santa Clara, it's beautiful, beautiful.
Actually, put the NFL draft stage in the plaza in front of the Ferry Building, and then have everybody line up Market Street.
No way, no way. If anything, it would be at Great America, and people would be lined up in the Niner parking lot, something like that. That's probably more like it. By the way, the Giants drafted James Tibbs III with the 13th pick in the first round of the baseball amateur draft. You say, who is James Tibbs III? Well, he went to Florida State, which, Buster Posey went there. He was the last not Giants pick that was a Florida State guy. But Tibbs, they say he's one of the most polished hitters in the draft.
He's hitterish, Larry. Very hitterish.
363 for the Seminoles, leading them to the College World Series, their first appearance since 2019. He's a left-handed hitter. The Giants love guys who do it in the Cape Cod League. The Cape Cod League is a college baseball all-star league along the Cape, right? And these kids basically play night games in front of ticket-buying crowds, and it's a wood bat league. And so that's why a lot of scouts, a lot of organizations put a lot of credence into it. But it's also your first kind of go around as a real pro, because it really is a professional environment. There's crowds at the Cape Cod games. I mean, there's people that go to those games. It's not like playing in, the rookie league in the Arizona League or something. There's nobody in the stands. And it's the wood bat league. Anyway, the Giants have always, since Sabian's been there, they've always valued guys who have big stats in the Cape. And this kid went down to the Cape and was great. He's one of the best hitters in the Cape. Hit over 300 with a 400 on base. And so polished college hitter who was great with the wood bat in the Cape League. They're going to sign Tibbs. He's probably a future left fielder. He's not a center fielder, but he's a 20 to 25 home run, pure hitting left fielder who's a left-handed
hitter. By the way, I love how the summation on ESPN, they did a little write-up if everyone went in the first round. Why the Giants took him here. They said because he's polished at the plate and should translate to a quick rise through to the majors.
Yeah, I think he might be the fastest guy to reach the bigs.
The drawback in his ceiling is he's more likely to be a solid player than a star as a corner-only outfield prospect with 20 to 25 home run upside. Okay, so if the Giants have a corner outfielder who hits 20, 25 home runs, he is a star in San Francisco. What are we kidding?
Well, they're saying, though, that the concern with Tibbs is that he has struggled against left-handed pitching, so that he might be a platoon. He might be a platoon bat that faces just righties. So we'll see. But they also think he's a very developed player who's going to get to the big leagues fast. So they're saying that, they're going to start him in the Cal League, that he could be, up in a year or two. So that could be something. We'll see.
So the San Francisco Giants have literally gone from what? Elio Ramos back to who is their last developed in their
Chili
own
Davis
system major leaguer.
Oh, wait, you're talking about outfielder?
Yes.
It's Chili Davis. Last time they had an all-star outfielder.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Charles
Davis. Charles Chili Davis is what they introduced him as his first spring training with the Giants. And now batting for the Giants, Charles Chili Davis.
Guess who just called me there? It was JT the Brick. I gotta give JT the Brick a call back.
There you go. We share the same agent.
That's my that we used to. I don't even have an agent anymore. What do I need an agent for?
Wow. I hear you.
What do I need an agent for? Who doesn't drum up anything?
You don't need an agent when you're on YouTube. You have your own. You're saving that money.
Yeah. 10% of the $38 I made today. I don't think so. And there it is. That was a hell of a show for there ain't shit going on. Enjoy, folks, your Major League Home Run Derby tonight, which I'm sure is just tailor-made to be awful. All-star game tomorrow in a terrible-looking ballpark in Texas.
A lot of talk coming out of Texas that the Yankees are really hot to trot to improve their team. They've struggled mightily over the last month. They need a second baseman, a third baseman, a starting pitcher, an outfield. I mean, they need a bunch of things. A lot of talk that they may knock on the Giants' door about Matt Chapman. So that will be interesting to see if Farhan and Melvin, Chapman's got the ability to opt out at the end of the year. There's a lot of speculation that he's going to do exactly that.
I don't want to hear.
Would you trade Matt Chapman to the Yankees? They have Jason Dominguez. They have the Spencer Jones kid who was just in the futures game.
Look, they're getting Robbie Ray back soon, apparently. Blake Snell just had his best outing wearing a Giants uniform. And you're going to have a lot of people telling you, well, they're only 3 games out of a wild card. They're also they get the fourth worst record in the National League, right? Their high water mark is 2 games over 500. They haven't been 500 since late May. But for the Marlins, the Nationals, and the Rockies, they get the worst record in the National League. Right. So, I don't care how many games of back in the wild card they might technically be. They ain't it. Okay. They're not it. So if I were the Giants, and this is why you probably the reason why Farhan remains the wrong guy for the job, because as you said last week, you can't have 1 playoff appearance in your first 7 years as a GM and expect to get an 8th year. I think Farhan really wants a playoff appearance this year. And instead of playing the team the right way by selling off now and building towards the future, I think they're going to go in on the false prophet that is 2024 for the Giants, trying to be the last team into the playoffs where they will be dispatched quickly should they actually get there.
Well, I mean, this is the struggle of the current MLB situation. I mean, they added a playoff team, so now there's 3 wild card teams. What you have is you only have a couple of really good teams in the league. You've got a couple really, really bad teams in the league. And then you got a group of teams that are all under 500 that are still very much alive for the third wild card spot.
Right.
So
and here's the thing. It's an illusion of contention more than it means you're.
Well, is it? I mean, Arizona and Texas made the World Series last year. They were both wild card teams, weren't they?
Right, but they were, certainly not Arizona. No one had Arizona in the World Series. Texas was supposed to be a good team and was a good team. Arizona was the real surprise. And yeah, you can find an awful lot of wild card success, but that's just because baseball is baseball. I mean, the Philadelphia Phillies.
But that's where we're at. Is that these baseball GMs are looking at this, going, "Why do I bother to try to build a team that can win 95 games when I can build a team that wins 85 games and then go in as a wild card and maybe win the World Series?" So they're kind of, I agree that I would try to build the best team possible, but I think the message that baseball GMs got out of last year is that just qualify, just get into the tournament. Anything could happen.
Well, I mean, baseball's a weird game. It really
is. It's like a de-incentive to build almost.
Right. Well, there's no the Phillies are far and away the best team in baseball so far this season, and the A's just went into Philadelphia, among the worst teams in all of baseball, and they absolutely lit the Philadelphia Phillies up, where they scored 18 runs on the 18-3 they won yesterday, hitting 8 home runs. I mean, baseball really is weird. You can be an awful team and beat the ever-living shit out of the best team in baseball. It's weird. Not a lot of sports lend themselves to that happening as routinely as it happens in baseball. By the way, Mason Miller apparently catching a Philadelphia. He's flying with the Phillies because John Fisher wouldn't fly Mason Miller directly to Texas on a private plane, so he had to hop on a Phillies private plane. This happened last year with whoever represented the A's in the All-Star game. They had to hitch a ride to the All-Star game with whatever team was, the team that they were playing on getaway day at the end of the first half. John Fisher sucks.
Hitch a ride. Can I hitch a ride to the All-Star game? I actually was watching the Futures game. The A's have a young right-handed pitcher who just throws smoke.
You guys going to Texas?
Morales. He was incredible. And I did get a chance to watch the Futures game and watch the big first baseman the Giants have. Bryce Eldridge.
Yeah.
And Bryce Eldridge is like 6'8". I mean, it's interesting. There's some Hall of Fame great big hitters, but there's also a lot of busts. Height is something that's a hard thing. It's hard to be a great hitter when you have a gigantic strike zone.
It is.
So it'll be interesting to see if Eldridge can be, we've seen guys like Dave Winfield and Dave Parker, and, we've seen some great players who are big men for sure. Dale Murphy. I mean, but it's hard. It's hard to hit for an average. It's hard to have offensive consistency when you're 6'6", 6'7", and have a huge strike zone.
By the way, did you see the Will Clark talking to Eric Burns about Angel Hernandez video?
No, but I'd love to.
So basically, Will Clark says, there was a day of Candlestick, Angels behind the plate, and he absolutely screws Will Clark out of, it takes 2 strikes off of him real quick in an at-bat, calls him out on a fuzzy third strike, a next time up, same thing, bad strike zone. Will Clark's got a better eye than Angel Hernandez does, takes a bad day at the plate. Angel's fingerprints are all over Will Clark's bad day at the plate. Team is out getting drinks. This might have been the old, the Gold Saloon or whatever it was there off of Union Square. That was a big umpires bar. Umpires would go and drink there. Will Clark sees Angel.
Maybe Hernandez. Washington Square Bar and Grill. Is that where you're thinking of?
Washington Square. It was the old Gold Rush Saloon that was, I think the Handlery Hotel owned the space.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, Will Clark sees Angel Hernandez in a bar the night where Angel Hernandez totally fucked them at the plate. Will Clark sends him over a beer. Angel Hernandez comes over and he says, "So what do you want to say to me?" Will says, "Nothing. I just wanted to buy you a beer. Have a great night." He's like, "For the rest of my career, Angel Hernandez gave me the strike zone the size of a lunchbox."
That's all it took. I mean, Angel Hernandez.
Kill him with kindness, Larry. When in doubt, kill him with kindness. I mean,
Angel Hernandez.
What a fraud Angel Hernandez was. You could buy your strike zone with a beer.
I mean, Angel Hernandez, the one when it was time to go was when there was a ball that landed in the outfield that he said was caught, and it landed in the outfield, and it was like it wasn't even like one of those where the guy scooped it, trapped it. No, it was like it just landed in the outfield. He just wasn't watching. Also, one of the worst calls I think Angel Hernandez was behind the plate, or Eric Gregg was behind the plate in the Livan Hernandez game against the Braves in the 90s, where the strike zone was just ridiculous. It was like
batter's box to batter's box.
It was like 3 times the size that it should have been.
It was
perfect because Eric Gregg was 3 times the size that he should have been. But either way, he was just a massive man.
Nicer to each other. We're dialing down the rhetoric.
Yeah. We're dialing down the rhetoric. He's a threat to existential threat. No, but what I would say more than anything is that there was one where Angel Hernandez, it was Bryce Harper, and it was did he go around? And Angel Hernandez was third base, and it wasn't even close. It was like the most obvious check swing that you've ever seen, and he rang up Harper. And Harper, you can hear Harper, "You are the worst umpire in this entire freaking league." It's like, and he really was. I mean, Angel Hernandez was really the worst.
Wrong. Every player over the course of 20 seasons can't be wrong. Right?
Yeah.
So
he was bad. He was bad.
It's a very tiny strike zone. After Will bought him that beer, it was the size of a Miata trunk. It was very, very small. It's amazing the power of a Coors Light on a lousy home plate umpire and what you can get.
I think you could have a hell of a sports talk debate. Was Angel Hernandez a better umpire, or was Trent Baalke a better evaluator of talent?
Oh, Trent, without a doubt. Trent is a Hall of Fame general manager compared to Angel Hernandez. Trent, I love you.
Thank you, Damon. Thank you. And I've said that to Mama Baalke and all the little Baalkes that, hey, you know what? We may be shitty. We may have drafted A.J. Jenkins. We may have ruined a situation with Jim Harbaugh over ego. But you know what? At the end of the day, we're not Angel Hernandez.
And on that note,
you were going to cut it off right there. I thought you were going to just click. Good
and
night,
on that note, we should say,
I hope everybody has a phenomenal day.